All right, all right. We are back in Belmar at the Grit Won't Quit podcast studio. I have a very special guest on today. I have Joe from Biond Financial. Joe, how's everything today?
I'm doing well, Tom. Thanks for having me.
You want to say your last name? Let everybody know.
Biondolillo.
There you go. Spell that say that 5 times fast and then spell it. Joe, it's nice to have you on today. I got connected with you through a prior podcast guest, Ryan Charterina.
Yep.
And he invited me to your boys club, the Core Trusted Advisors, back a few months ago, and I came to your office, and I've been a member since.
Yeah, well, it's great to have you part of the team.
Thank you. It's a great group. What's funny is the year before, Scott Bliss had, who I also know for years, had invited me to that event at Trump last year, and on the last minute something came up and I couldn't make it. And then Ryan's on the podcast. He goes, "Oh, you got to meet this group." And then the first time I came to your office, Scott Bliss is there, and he goes, "Bro, I invited you last year and you didn't come." And I was like, "Oh man, sorry." So, but very good group of guys, and everybody helping to promote each other and help strategize their businesses to grow.
Yeah, absolutely, and we can really use each other to help our clients better accomplish the things that are important to them because it's a diverse group of businesses.
Recently, within the group, I've done some business. Anthony Labecci is helping move our PEO to one of his carriers.
Excellent.
And he has a nice cost savings on our health benefits, which is awesome. Anthony Moriello, I helped him make a new website. In addition, I referred him to somebody who's looking for some bookkeeping services. So it's nice to be able to give members through the group.
Yeah, and as you get to know them, your clients are getting good service.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Me and Anthony Moriello were talking yesterday about the idea of like that. The client, if the client trusts me and then they come to me and ask for a service that I don't offer, but that he does, as long as he can do a great job, which he will, the client's gonna be happy.
Yeah, and it increases client retention. It increases the client experience, and at the end of the day, the client experience is everything. They're going to remember how you made them feel, and it's not just about the products that you sell. It's knowing that they can trust you as a resource, and whether you're in the marketing business or the financial services business, that's really what client service is about.
Absolutely. In the world of AI, what do you think about the client experience? Where do you think that's going in the world of AI?
AI is super interesting to me. I think it's going to be very helpful in the client experience. I don't think it's going to replace human interaction. I think there's always going to be an element of human interaction. When I started working on Wall Street in 1998, people told me not to get into that business because technology was going to kill it. Here we are 20-something years later, and technology hasn't killed it. It's just made the business faster, better, more efficient. I think AI will be very similar in every space. Specifically in my business, I think it's going to make advisors better. It's going to make clients more educated, and I think that'll help enhance the client experience.
Perfect. Now so you started on Wall Street.
I did.
We jumped into a couple other things, but normally I like to start off with where you've been and where you are now. So you started on Wall Street, 1998.
Yeah.
Where'd you go to college?
I went to St. John's University.
Awesome. So then you went right to Wall Street.
I did.
How long did you stay there?
I worked on Wall Street, so I began my career on Wall Street in 1998 while I was in college.
Okay.
And I built what wound up being a few different businesses in that silo. And I stayed in that space till around 2012.
Okay.
And then in a little bit prior to 2012, I started transitioning into the planning business that I have now, and ultimately just exited that other business and made my business more about the work that we do today versus the transactional nature of Wall Street.
Mm-hmm. And then when you started your business, it was not in New Jersey. You started out on Staten Island?
Correct. Yes, that's where I'm originally from. That's where my business originally started. And I was there for the entire time period that I had that business.
Sure. And then 8 years ago or so, you made the jump to Jersey?
We made the pilgrimage. Yeah. we
to Monmouth County.
To Monmouth County, which seems to be the progression of everybody from New York City.
Yep.
And that's only progressed since COVID.
Yeah, exactly. My wife and I moved to New Jersey about 15 years ago. She wanted to move here, but I jumped from Long Island. I skipped the boroughs and got right to Monmouth County.
Smart move. Smart move.
So,
especially what's going on politically right now in New York City.
Yeah, it's crazy. So that's for a different day. That's for a different conversation, different podcast. I'm not the host for that one. I don't know enough about it. But so you're on Wall Street. Life is probably pretty good. You decide you're going to now service and do the planning side of it. What made that transition? What made you get to that point?
So, the way I describe Wall Street is very transactional by nature. It's buying and selling. It's transactional. It's trading. Our business was retail brokerage. We did a lot of telecommunication sales. We did business with a lot of people throughout the country. There was no true formulated relationships, and furthermore, there wasn't really value I felt that we created in the people that we worked with.
Okay.
It was about making money, not necessarily for me so much as the clients, right? If you could make somebody money, you were good. If you didn't make the money, you were bad. And that was the judgment of the relationship, which is something that was cool when you were young, right? Because you wanted to do well. And it was a way that you can build a quick business and work really hard and try to grow something. But when I kind of looked at my future and where I saw myself 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now, it's not something I really saw myself enjoying doing for a long period of time.
Fair, that's fair. And now the clients now are more entrepreneurial, right?
Yeah, so 70% of the people that we work with today are entrepreneurs. 30% of them are professional C-suite executives in publicly traded corporations or independent businesses.
And now these entrepreneurs, are they most of them first generation entrepreneurs, or are they more, handed down the business and taking it to the next level? Entrepreneurship is like a whole. There's different places. I feel like there's different stages of entrepreneurs.
There's no doubt, and I think by sheer numbers, we work with both genres. We work with the second and third generation families, but I would say the core of my business, I believe like attracts like. I'm a first generation business owner. I relate to first generation business owners. I understand the grit, the hard work, what it takes coming from modest means. And building something from the ground. And I think that connectivity is what allows you to formulate those relationships. And by virtue of that, I would say some of my strongest relationships are first-generation entrepreneurs.
Yeah, and it's a different game. I mean, you're hustling out there.
It's a different game.
You're doing whatever it takes to make it work. And again, now when you left Wall Street, I mean, I'm sure you did well on Wall Street, but you started you're starting out on your own.
Ground zero.
Ground zero. You got to build from nothing. No one.
You did, but a couple of takeaways that I had from that transition and that experience is that your reputation, good or bad, will always follow you. And what I did gain was that I guess you could say reputation over the decade and a half in the business that I was in, which I would like to think was a fairly good reputation of doing the right thing and helping people. That reputation followed me. I also had success in that business. So by virtue of that success, my centers of influence, my relationships had equal, if not greater, success. So unlike somebody who's starting out in a space from ground zero, I had relationships, I had rapport with these individuals. People already trusted and respected me. It's not like I started selling ice cream and I was selling stocks.
Yeah.
I transitioned from one component of planning to ultimately a different component of planning. So it was a much easier transition. Furthermore, I did have quite a few relationships from my brokerage days of good family-owned businesses that I had relationships with that I was only focusing on one component of their planning that now I stopped doing. But it opened up the ability for me to do some more comprehensive planning. As an example, I had a client in North Carolina that owned over a dozen McDonald's. I had a client in South Carolina that owned a couple of dozen hotels. So we had some really affluent clients that were family-owned, first-generation businesses that I was able to kind of cut my teeth on and build some good rapport with and start to transition into the business that I wanted to do.
Now, what are some of the services that you offer for these entrepreneurs? Again, I think there's some entrepreneurs, some days I feel like I'm just in the grind, and then some days I try to look, I try to look at the business, of the growth of the business and how to get it to the next level. But then there's, I think a lot of entrepreneurs are just in the day-to-day hustle of it.
Yeah, so we define that as working in the business versus working on the business. And I think we all start working in our business, right? You're grinding day to day. You're trying to figure out ways to create revenue. You're trying to figure out ways to make people come in the door, so to speak. And then there becomes a point where you're like, well, if I continue to just do this every day, I'm just going to be an employee that's not reporting to somebody else. So that's not really being a business owner.
Bought
right?
yourself a job.
You bought yourself a job, which is what most entrepreneurs do. So what we do with the people that we work with is we try to get them at 30,000 feet in a helicopter over the forest and start to say, okay, this is an engine, and we need to make this engine work more efficiently and more effectively. And in an entrepreneur's world, that means people, that means processes, that means structure, that means continuity. So we work with the folks that we work with to help them build those things. And maybe that's through retaining key people. Maybe that's through having good succession planning. Maybe that's through having good processes to maximize the value of your business over time. Maybe it's through making introductions and having clients work with individuals that can help them sell their business, because we do a lot of work in that space. But every step of the way, there's planning that's involved. There's goals that are involved. We help the clients identify what those goals are and then create systems, processes, and structures to be able to have them obtain those goals in an efficient and effective way.
And a lot of people are like, wow, that's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. So really the role we play is part psychiatrist and part coach.
Yeah.
Right? And I think in any business, you have a client that wants to get from point to A to point B. They're meeting with you because you're the conduit to help them get there. So we spend a lot of time on effective communication, good client service, and internally building our team to be able to facilitate the people that we work with to help them accomplish the things that are important to them.
Yeah, and I think that's great. I mean, it's just I think a lot of entrepreneurs, are just in that hustle, and they have to kind of pull back, myself included. Like I'll be the first to tell you, I have to pull back. There's days I'm just in that hustle. But I think as you want to grow and as you want to scale and as you want to come up with an exit plan or how to pass on the business to the next generation, you kind of have to look at that and figure that out, because it's easy just to be in the business. I think that some days it's easier to be in the business just churning versus starting to look at it more strategically.
Yeah, and I've spent a lot of time over my career studying how wealthy people and successful entrepreneurs make financial decisions. And I believe that success leaves clues. And if you look at the way some of these successful entrepreneurs do what it is that they do, they're doing things uncommonly, they're doing things differently. And where we're a good fit for the families that we work with is if we can get them to think outside of the box the way wealthy people do.
What's one takeaway? What's one hidden gem of how the wealthy make decisions?
Well, I think there's a few of them. Some of the things that come to mind that we talk about a lot in our practice is protection first. People who have accomplished success oftentimes focus more on obsessing about not losing what they've built versus how much they can gain.
Okay.
And a lot of times we refer to those as wealth eroding factors, whether those be mitigating taxes or protecting their assets from lawsuits or the things in life that we can't control, like death or disability. They spend a lot of time focusing on what they're not losing and not so much time on how can they get a crazy rate of return, so to speak. And I think regular people don't focus on the protection. They don't focus on mitigating or eliminating what they can control, and they spend a lot of time focusing on what they can't control, which is just chasing rate of return.
It's interesting. And now you've also done some real estate along the way, and
I have.
You have a real estate portfolio company that so you have a nice tie-in with the real people that own real estate because you can relate to them.
And that's probably something I hear most from the families. And we work with a lot of families that have created tremendous amounts of success in real estate, in all facets of real estate, whether they're developers, whether they're landlords, whether they're fix and flippers, whether they're lenders. We understand that business model very well, which makes it easy for me as a planner to work with these individuals to set up good structures, whether it be for asset protection or continuity or even estate planning, to make sure that things are doing are very efficient and effective. It's something I spend a lot of time educating myself on because I enjoy it. And we've got a real vested interest in it as well.
How long have you been doing the real estate?
I bought my first piece of real estate in the year 2001.
Nice.
So what does that come to?
24 years.
24 years.
Math isn't your strong suit, huh?
Yeah, that's why I'm in the financial business.
Listen, you get to use calculators and all those fancy tools in Excel, so it's easy to figure out. So that's great. And that's a nice synergy between both businesses for you.
It is. I think one of the misnomers in the financial world is when clients come to me and entrepreneurs come to me, their biggest apprehension is that most in finance want the entrepreneurs to take the money that they make in their successful businesses and take it out of the business and really hyper focus on putting it into other things. And I remind entrepreneurs that the most wealth in this country has been created by people investing into themselves, right? So we just want to show you how to be able to do that more efficiently, how to invest in yourself. And yes, you have to have rainy day funds and protection in place and retained earnings and good capital accounts and good protection in place. And we help with all those things. But we really educate them on how to maximize what we call access to capital and how to be able to utilize and deploy that capital in the most efficient and effective way that the entrepreneur thinks is best, not the financial advisor thinks is best.
Mm-hmm. The entrepreneur is, usually ready to go with the next thing versus...
Absolutely. And if you look at multiples on business, the buyouts you get from PE, if that's your goal, right? Every business owner will exit their business. They'll either do it on their terms or not, So you want to have that plan in place, and we help you get there.
The exits are interesting. I know a couple of guys that have had PE exits of recent, and I don't think they've all been as smooth as maybe they thought they were going to be.
I think it depends on the private equity group that you get involved with. There's a lot of different ways that you can exit a business, not only through PE. We've had clients that have had super successful PE exits, which wound up being better than expected because you most of the time wound up leaving some of the company in with the private equity group. And we've had a lot of clients in multiple industries that have done really well on the exit and almost better on the secondary exit because of what the PE firm was able to do with it.
Yeah.
We've had other companies we have other clients that have exited their businesses, whether it be through private equity or some different source, and it literally blew up. They didn't get a lot of money up front. Their payouts didn't happen. They wound up in litigation. So like anything in life, it's not always what it seems, right? You need to do your due diligence. And you have to decide if you're ready to exit your business that you don't start. It's like retirement. When people come to us and they tell us they're ready to retire next year, we're very limited on what we can do. If you come to us and say we want to sell our business next year, there's only so much structure we can help you with. But if you come to me today and say, hey, look, our goal is to get here in 5 years, here in 10 years, and in 15 years, either do X, Y, or Z, maybe go public, maybe sell it, maybe do an ESOP. Now we've got a lot of groundwork to help clients with, so time helps.
I want to go back to ESOP in a second. I get an email once a week from a private equity firm, a larger investment company, a larger marketing agency, asking me if I'm interested in exploring an exit, And every week I write the same reply. I'm not ready. I need 5 to 7 years. Call me back, in a few years. Most of them don't respond to me. One guy 2 weeks ago writes me back and goes, Tom, this is awesome. Do you mind if I put a reminder in to catch up with you in a couple of years? I said, sure, no problem. My feeling is I'm too young right now to have an exit. I would be bored to tears. I don't have enough hobbies. I would drive my wife probably crazy. It would be bad.
So I would argue that if you're going to be ready in 5 to 7 years, you're going to be the person who in 5 to 7 years says, I'm ready to exit in a year or two, or you push it back another 5 to 7 years. So the point of the conversations that you want to start having now are just about what does that exit look like in 5 to 7 years? Where's the company in 5 to 7 years? And then reverse engineer what things does the company need to do today to make sure it's properly structured to be able to exit in 5, 7, or 10 years.
Yeah.
So really, the point is the planning starts today.
Yeah, it's not too early then.
It's not too early. You've got a team, you've got an organization, you've got a system that's working, and you want to build good people around you so you can build good traction. And ultimately, whether, we have what we call a value evaluation process that we take clients through. And it's a complex process that I won't get into now, but the gist of it is that the first thing you identify is the present position of your business. The second thing you identify is the present position that you're in financially. And then we take you through and walk you through this system of what we call financial readiness and mental readiness. The first thing is mental readiness. You're clearly not ready to sell your business, so you don't check that box. The second component, which is really the first component, is the financial readiness. Even people who want to sell their business don't know what it actually means when you turn money into lifestyle, right? So when you sell that business, you're going to get a number, and that number needs to replace how you're used to living. What does that number need to be? What do your budgets look like? What does your lifestyle look like? And those are all the conversations that you could begin planning for today, that when it's time to get out of your business, whether it's 5, 10, or 20 years from now, you've had good systems, processes, or better said, a strong foundation.
I like it. Now, can we talk about the ESOP?
Sure.
So I don't think a lot of people know what an ESOP is. So can you explain the letters and what that means to a business owner?
So an ESOP acronym stands for Employee Stock Ownership Plan. It's one of many ways that you could sell all or a portion of your business, and you're selling your business to your employees. So it's really good for a company who's got a really good culture, and it's good for the entrepreneur that says things like, I want to sell my business, but I'd love to see it continue to grow, and I don't want a corporation to run it. Or I want to sell my business, and my kids don't want anything to do with it, or I don't have children, right? Or I'd like to take some liquidity out of my business, still have some involvement in the business, but not be answering to a corporation that I don't know. In all of these instances, there's a structure out there called an ESOP, where you can sell a percentage of your company, if not all of your company, to a qualified retirement plan for the benefit of your employees. And what many people think when they hear that is, well, that sounds great, but where's the money coming from? And what happens is, if you have a successful business, there's financial institutions that will give you a loan based on the profits of your business, and that loan will be taken out by this ownership plan of your employees. And their profits, rather than going in their pockets, will go to pay back this loan, which thereby will create their equity in the business and allow them to get equity out of that business at a point in time in the future, keeping them involved, keeping them engaged, and keeping them incentivized.
It's pretty cool. Now, is it for all employees, or is it just for a portion of the employees on the team, or could it vary?
It could vary, and it's complex, and it is a qualified retirement plan, so most people have to be involved. But there's some
rules around.
There's complexities. Yeah. It's not a one size fits all.
Yeah,
it's not a right fit for everybody. But it's certainly something that some good entrepreneurs, if you're in a good sweet spot of revenue and profitability, and you have the metrics and goals of what that could fit, you look into it.
That's pretty cool. A lot to think about as an entrepreneur. Like, it's not just hustling it out. You got to think about some of these things. And would you say, like, in general, what percentage of entrepreneurs are kind of planners, if you could put a...
So I would say that, if I looked at it generationally, I think first and foremost, every single person I've ever come across that has built something doesn't want it to deplete.
Yeah.
Now, whether they take action to do something about it or not is a different story. I think generationally, our generation, the younger generation today, is more in tune and more adept with technology and information. And from a younger age, I'm starting to see that generation be more mindful of retaining key people, having good succession planning, doing their estate planning, all things that we're promoting through our practice. The older generation could be a little bit, with the baby boomers specifically, could be a little bit more old school. They're not worried about it. They want to keep things more tight to the vest. They don't want their kids or families really knowing what they have. They're not as open. Mm-hmm. Social media has created this openness, right? Sure. People are on TV showing their houses, and baby boomers cringe when they see that stuff.
Totally.
They don't want people to see their car in their garage, and the other person's, taking a picture in their car.
Totally.
So I think that the younger generation is trying to do more about it, but I think the older generation is starting to come into tune with the fact that they're not going to be here forever. And if you want your legacy to last, there's a lot of research that shows the best way to have businesses succeed for multi-generations, or to have estates not blow up, is through efficient communication, having good teams, and having integration with the families to understand the family's assets so they could be good stewards of it, not beneficiaries of it.
That's fair. And there's going to be a ton of baby boomers retiring now.
Well, it's going to be the biggest transition of wealth the world's ever seen.
Yeah. It's going to be a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, a lot of opportunity, a lot of disaster, a lot of taxes, a lot of planning.
Yeah. Well, you got a secure job now for the next 25 years.
I think we're safe.
Yeah, you're good.
I think we have good longevity.
There you go. This was great. I'm glad that I'm glad that you finally came on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I
I'm
think
glad.
you bring a different element. A lot of guys come in and talk about the nuts and bolts of it, whereas you're kind of looking at it from, I like the way that you say, from 30,000 feet, just to kind of look at it from a different perspective and help people start to plan for that future. And I think there's probably some proper planning. It prevents some issues, but also you kind of get ahead of things and you think about it differently than the guy who's just running into the fire the next day.
Yeah, listen, when you're running through the forest, it's very difficult to see where you're going through the trees, but when you kind of lift above the forest, you can kind of see what's going on, right? And that's the difference of looking at things at 30,000 feet versus not. Oftentimes we're introduced to new entrepreneurs, new business owners, new professionals through their trusted advisors, and one of the most common things I hear is, Joe, we've done this already. And I remind every individual, whether we work together or not, is that planning's an evolution, not a destination. You might have done some planning, but it doesn't mean that's the end of it unless you're done, unless you're not doing anything ever again. So just continue to educate yourself, talk to people, and realize that there's more planning ahead because your future is brighter than your past.
Awesome. So as we wrap up today, let people know where they can find you. If they want to learn more, they want to inquire, they want to read about you.
Sure. So you can go to our website. It's Biond Financial, BIOND Financial.com. And through there, you can find our address, our website, our emails, our phone numbers.
Your LinkedIn.
My LinkedIn should be on there. We've been on and hosted on a bunch of podcasts. I had a podcast myself for a while, so there's a lot of content out there, some videos, and you can download a free copy of a white paper that I wrote on financial myths. And our website is really the end all and be all for that.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for coming in. It was great to have you, and I look forward to being in touch.
Thanks, Tom. Good luck.
Thank you.